Reality Check with Craig Price.
Oh, right, sorry.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me. Craig, shut up.
Hey, I need you guys to do these things.
You're like a beautiful mind. I'm more like Forrest Gump. So we're back with another edition of Reality Check. I am Craig Price. We've got a great show for you today. Laura Lopez joins us, and she's going to talk about leadership. And leadership is one of those things that, it varies. Different people have different styles, and there is really no one way to lead. Some people lead with the whip. Some people lead with the carrot. Some people are very hands-off, and other people are very hands-on. And all of those styles can work, and all of those styles cannot work, depending on the situation, depending on the people, depending on how you apply the whip, how you apply the carrot. If you lavish them with all these rewards for every little tiny thing they do, those rewards become insignificant. If you constantly are giving them the whip, they'll just end up leaving at some point because no one likes to be constantly whipped. It all depends on the situation. It also depends on your style. What you see works is the key. I think a lot of people forget that. They read all these management books and management tools, and they see these styles that they can't apply because it's not in their personality. Sometimes you need to coddle people. There are leaders out there who cannot coddle. Sometimes you have to be demanding. There are people out there who cannot make demands. If that is not your style and you don't see results when you try to apply those styles, don't use them. It's that simple. Use what works. The only problem is you have to pay attention. You have to track your results. A lot of people go on assumptions. They just assume it works, or they assume things are going well without actually asking around, double-checking, talking to their people. Also, as a manager, you can't be afraid to let your people go to some degree. Let them work. Let them do their thing. That's why you hired them. That's why they're there. Let them use their talents. Your job is just to check in every once in a while to make sure that their talents are being applied properly and leveraged in the right way. So don't be afraid to pull back. Don't be afraid to not manage sometimes. Sometimes best management is hands-off management. But again, do what works for you with your people. And I'm going to do that right now. I'm just going to take my hands off. Let Laura do it. She's the expert. Why should I sit here and prattle on about stuff like this when we got someone who really knows what they're doing? So let me give you Laura Lopez. I didn't realize that your parents were from Spain. I mean,
yeah.
I saw that. You're like first generation.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep.
Where in Spain are they from?
They were from Almeria. Almeria is the southern part of Spain.
Okay, near Portugal.
Do you know where Malaga is?
No, I have no idea where
anything
is in Spain.
Spain has like two little tips at the bottom.
Okay.
One is Malaga and one's Almeria.
All right.
And it's just across from, northern Africa.
Oh, okay. So it's right on the
right
sea.
On the coast.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So near
exactly.
Portugal too.
Well, Portugal's to the west.
I don't know.
So
I'm an American. I don't know where anything
yeah,
is.
exactly. So Portugal's the whole western part of the Iberian, peninsula.
Okay. And when so they just picked up and leave?
Well,
no.
Was there
stuff going on? There was stuff going on.
Yeah, it was the
there?
Spanish Civil War was going on in the 30s, but they were children. They were young.
Yeah.
So it was really their parents that came here.
Oh, okay.
So it was their parents that came with them as small children. So
Separately.
Even though, it's ironic, but my parents were both raised in the same small town in Spain.
Oh, okay. So they kind of knew each
other. So they all knew each other.
For a long time.
50 families emigrated.
At one time?
Well, it was over a series of years, but not...
So it was a mass exodus kind of...
It was like a mass... Yeah, because of the Civil War.
Oh,
so
wow.
People were trying to get out.
Oh. For those of you who don't know, I'm here with Laura Lopez, leadership expert. And so they came here from across... You were the first...
Generation.
You were the first naturally born American.
That's correct.
So they went to New York?
They went to New York, which most immigrants do.
Yeah, I know, back then.
Yeah, so they grew up in, Brooklyn area.
So you got the whole New York thing
going on.
So I got,
oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. She thought, hey, don't talk to me like that. I didn't know if you were like Staten Island or...
No, I grew up on Long Island.
Oh, Long Island.
Long Island.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
so
Long Island.
Yeah, and then...
So
then where did you end up going to college?
So I went to school in Pennsylvania.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
So it's like a complete opposite. That's where they think that's the country in New York. That's
Right.
shipping people out.
Well, it was the country. It was still 5 hours away.
No, that is.
Yeah.
But that's like. But then you got Amish people to deal with. And all
yeah.
these things.
Oh, and I went to school very close to the Amish.
Which school did you go to?
I went to Bucknell.
Okay.
Bucknell University.
All right.
So then from there, I wanted to go work in New York City. So
Well, sure.
Yeah.
If you want to go back home, but also everybody wants to go. I lived in New York City.
Did you?
Yeah, I lived in Queens for a little bit, in Jackson Heights.
Oh, that's right. I remember you telling me about this.
And then I moved from Jackson Heights
Right.
to 52nd and 2nd.
Oh, okay.
I'm moving on up.
That's actually what is that called? That's the meat packing district. It's a very hot place right now.
No, I think I'm a little
Isn't
high.
it?
I'm a little
Was
high.
it a little higher?
Oh yeah. It's,
okay, maybe
it's closer to the Upper East Side. It's right. It's more. It's farther north than the UN building.
Oh wait. 2nd Avenue, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. No. I got that wrong. It's
all
the
right.
50s and more like 7th and 8th Avenue.
Oh yeah, on the other side.
That's the other side, right?
They
Right.
weren't
So I'm
pack-
sorry. I was a
Nobody
little
was
turned
packing
around.
any meat over where I was.
Okay, any New Yorkers listening to me? It's been a while
That's
since
all right.
I've been gone.
Yeah, well, once you leave, it
I know, it
goes
gets
away
fuzzy.
quickly, real quick.
It's fuzzy.
So now the reason why I have you here because you finally left and you joined Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you have to move to Georgia for that? Because
Yes.
that you did.
Yes,
Oh.
I was in Atlanta. Well, what happened was my career didn't start at Coke. My career started in New York City at Avon Products after I did my graduate school, so I skipped that part.
See, I was going to ask you about that, but
Yeah.
I didn't want you to go.
No.
Yeah, I was selling door to door, and then
No,
like,
no.
oh, okay. You worked actually for Avon.
No, I worked for their headquarters.
For the real
For
Avon.
the real Avon
Yeah.
headquarters. I mean, well, the people selling door to door are selling Avon,
Yeah.
but they have the people that were, behind the scenes in the headquarters.
And you're doing marketing mostly.
I was doing marketing, and I was doing a little bit. I started my career actually in market research.
So you were helping lay out the little catalogs, the little tiny little product. My mom used to sell Avon, so I know.
Exactly.
So she had the little product catalog.
Uh-huh.
But also, were you doing other things besides just getting that stuff ready and then packaging it? What kind of marketing were you doing? Because
Yeah.
I can't imagine what marketing for Avon is like because it's such a door-to-door business.
Right. Well, it was different. Different than the marketing I did at Coke for sure. But it was the kind of marketing that you basically had to select the products. So you had to select the right products. And there was a lot of merchandising related to that. So how you laid out the catalog was critically important because it generated a certain amount of revenue and profit depending upon how you laid out your products. So I worked on I had so many different jobs. I started first in market research, and we did a lot of analysis down to the zip code level, sort of understanding what kind of representatives are you going to get.
Because what they're doing in Sheboygan, Wisconsin is completely different than what
Exactly.
they're doing in uptown New York City.
Exactly.
Now, so then you get to Coca-Cola. Now, you were in the marketing department, and you worked your way up. Now, corporate, now I've been in corporate, but I haven't been that high up in corporate.
Yes.
Now, how
Lucky you.
dysfunctional does it get the higher you get up?
Well, I really, it
And
gets...
you don't have to name names. but-
I wouldn't say it gets overly dysfunctional. I think what gets difficult is how you impact results. And that's one of the reasons that I now consider myself a leadership expert is because as you go up the organization, the way you get things done are very differently. They're done differently than, say, for example, if you're a sole contributor, if you're one person trying to get things done. And I made a lot of mistakes because I didn't really have a lot of people before me.
Because in Avon, you didn't have to worry about that
Well,
much input from other people?
well, I
You have to play politics to some degree, don't
yes,
you?
you do have to play politics, but that's not a dirty word.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
To some degree.
A lot of people think it is.
Well, because there's a lot of people who play dirty politics.
That's true.
I mean,
That's true.
There's that stereotype. They go, I don't like the stereotype. Well, a lot of times the stereotype is true. That's the definition of a stereotype.
Yeah.
The
Right.
general average is considered a stereotype.
Right.
And in my experience, I have found that I'd say it's about a third are really, really nice people who are generally out to look out for others.
Right.
I would say a third are the exact opposite. They are completely selfish and they're out
Right.
to look out for themselves, and they're the cutthroats, the backstabbers. And the other third, I think they do their best, but there are times on any given instance where they kind of will swing either way depending on the situation. I think they mostly will try to do a good job, but I think they will
do
compromise.
the right thing.
Yeah, I think they'll try to do the right thing, but they will compromise to some degree.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know about the scientific third.
Oh no! Oh, none of this is scientific. I don't know. I'm pulling these numbers out of my butt. But that's my impression. So I'm asking you if you're validating that, if you find that to be true.
Well, I mean, the reason I stayed in corporate America as long as I did was that I found the people to be great. Honestly.
Because you were there for a long time.
I was in Avon for close to 7 years, and then I went to Coke, and I was there almost 17 years. So. Yeah, more than 20 years. So, I mean, I think the negatives that really drug me down, the reality of the negatives were more around the difficulty of getting things done. And I'm a person that likes results, and I like to see action. And so sometimes I didn't always have the patience.
Oh, no. If you're from New York, you have patience.
Yeah, and that to me was a very challenging thing, especially moving into a southern environment.
Yeah, I mean, my brother went to school in Atlanta, the Atlanta area, and I just visited there. I've been down, and we live in Texas now, and that's kind of, it's a different pace.
But it's a go-get. I mean,
I think Atlanta seems a little more peppy.
Really?
Well, I was just there, a little bit than average. I mean, it's not Charlotte, North Carolina.
No, you're right. It's still a major city. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not Montgomery, Alabama.
Right.
All nice cities, but I don't think the urgency. I guess we'll call it the urgency. That's a nice way of putting it, right?
Yes.
Because I got married in Hawaii, and I loved being in Hawaii when I didn't have to go between point A and point B.
Right.
That island time.
Oh my God, I can imagine.
And it's not just island time. It's like freezes time. It takes you 20.
Time goes back.
You might as well be walking. I got an old lady who's pushing a cart passing my car.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's like a little parade down the street because they don't want you to go too fast and hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And I find the South to be like that as well. It's just there's nothing wrong with the pace. They still get things done and they do it well. It's just a matter of I'm used to run, let's get it done.
Right.
And I'm sure you were like that.
Yeah, but the thing that really bothered me more than the pace, because you could imagine Coca-Cola was an international company, so it had a lot of type A's and very, urgency wasn't an issue. It was more around the double talk, sort of the southern way of not being direct.
Bless your heart.
Yes, there you go.
Which I believe is F-U. I believe that's exactly what it is. Instead of saying, I'm from New York, the area, I'm from the Boston area, you're from New York. We say the F word like a comma.
Right, exactly.
We use that word to catch our breath.
Right.
Where most people pause.
Right.
So
that's true.
Where they will say stuff like, well, bless your heart, which is, or, what's the other one? Like they were talking about, he's just doing the best he can, which means he's an idiot and he won't get it done, but he's just doing the best he can.
Right. Yeah. So that indirectness drove me nuts.
I'm not sure I'd call it passive aggressive. I guess it's politeness.
Yeah.
The problem I find is that all that politeness is put forward, but yet they're doing.
Sometimes it gets in the way.
Well, there's a lot of stuff going behind the scenes that they hide with their facade of being nice. So it's like, well, I'd rather you just lie to my face and tell me than to say nice things and then I find out 3 weeks later that you're really plotting my death.
Right.
And so at Coca-Cola, not necessarily Coca-Cola, but in Atlanta, in the South that area, you found that to be the case.
Culturally, I had an adjustment to make.
And
absolutely.
How did you make that adjustment?
Well, I mean, I started really doing a lot of the leadership lessons that I talk about today, which is, you've got to really you got to sit back more. You got to listen better. You have to allow people, because I tend to be on the more assertive side, and so some of that doesn't always work with people that aren't. And so I started to really have to look in the mirror a lot deeper. And
I know how to be somewhat diplomatic, but whenever I was in a management position in the southern region, so to speak, I found that I was a little too direct.
Right.
I mean, I get paid for that now.
Right.
I mean, my clients hired me to be direct.
Yes.
But I have a hard time softening the blow, so to speak, because I don't find it a problem to, say,
well,
this is what you got to do. Do it right now.
Right.
Whatever you've been doing, it just hasn't been working. Boom. But you've got to go, well, let's talk about what you've been working on. Now, how do you find that you've got to really explore that?
Right.
How do you do that without, jabbing a pen in someo's neck?
Well, now, I don't know if you know this, Craig, but I'm also a Berkman consultant.
No,
so
I thought you were going to tell me you've been convicted of jabbing.
yeah, jabbing people.
I don't know if you know this, but I have to go to my probation officer after this because I jabbed someone in the neck.
One of the things at my leadership consulting, I work with executives and I coach them. And oftentimes, that's what we'll do is we'll do a Berkman on them. And Berkman, what we're talking about here is the esteem score. And so people that have more direct personalities like you and I, we have less of a need to feel respect and concern for,
Yeah.
We deal with the issue, not necessarily the person.
I mean, I'd like to be respected, but I don't need to have that to get results. I don't need a pat. My very first podcast, I said I don't need pats on the head, though I like them.
Right.
I'd much rather tell me what I'm doing wrong so I can fix it.
Exactly.
I find most people do not want that.
Well, it depends.
It's how you say it.
Yeah.
But I think most people would like to be reassured. I call it a crap sandwich. They like to, they like to be reassured. Then you tell them what the problem is. Then you tell them how great they are, and out the door they go.
Right.
Right. You gotta
tell them 2 good things for the 1 bad, right?
Right. You gotta put the crap around a spoonful of sugar, sort of thing.
Right. And for some people that works, but people like you and I, especially if you're
we can taste the crap right away.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
There's not enough bread in the world.
That's right.
We can taste the crap. We don't mind it, but that's the thing.
Right.
Is we know we'd much rather just give us a spoonful of crap.
I know. Right. Exactly.
That we getting crap on occasion.
But it's true. It's true. So, when you have a low esteem score, which it sounds like you do, and you have a need that's low esteem, you don't want people to BS you. Yeah. And that's you're not going to develop trust when someone gives you the crap sandwich. I get it. I mean, I'm like that too, but not everybody is.
So how did you, before you became certified and all those things, so now you obviously you adjusted, otherwise you wouldn't have lasted 14 years.
Absolutely, I adjusted.
So what were the key things besides just slowing down?
Yeah, and stepping back.
Yeah, that would be part of the slowing down process for me, just like taking a second, regardless of what my first instinct is.
Right.
I would sit back and go, don't forget your first instinct, because it's usually right. But let's go take a look at some other instincts.
Right. Right.
So is that what you had to do? Was there some techniques that you used?
I like take a deep breath before I open my mouth.
Yeah, I would hyperventilate by doing all that.
You'd be taking deep breaths every minute.
Okay, let me talk to you. Hold on a second. So that's a good technique, just stop.
Yeah, just to stop, take a deep breath, and then get my thoughts together, and also really get to know the team working for you, and not having judgment.
Now, do you find that as you moved along, and as you went up, the leadership, because I know you talk about being connected as a leader, did you find it the higher up it was more disconnected they got? I understand they're going to get disconnected from the factory worker,
right?
The person on the lower levels,
right?
Just because of location, but as of what the situation is going on, I mean, did you find them as you went out there so out of touch?
Absolutely.
Were there some leaders that were like trying to reach out, or were they just? It just happened to be like a culture.
Well, I do think leaders in general, and just the sort of the negatives of the job, are that you get lonelier and people don't want to approach you as much. People don't say as much to you. People just aren't as direct because of the position you're in. So it's on the leadership's responsibility, the person, to create a forum so that they can, not just a formal forum.
Yeah, not just an open door policy, something a little more elaborate.
An environment so that the person can actually tell you what's going on. I love this whole thing, the undercover boss.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's fantastic because they actually put those leaders into,
right, but
those roles.
Don't you find that to be like worst case scenario though, that you have to go undercover in your own company to find out what the world is?
It's not totally far fetched. Okay. I mean, really. Again, you're a direct person, so you're not going to have, and some people have difficulty with authority, and they say, okay, I'm intimidated by this person, and so therefore I'm afraid to say what's really going on. So there's a lot of factors, and leaders, they're going to watch every move. They're going to misunderstand, how you say anything or how you looked at someone. It's like everything that you do as a leader is magnified 10 times.
So you definitely recommend they get on the goggles or whatever their hard hats and get down in the trenches,
right?
Even if you have to disguise yourself,
right? Well, I wouldn't necessarily.
That's what I'm saying. It's I think
it's extreme.
You're really out of touch if you have to disguise yourself,
right?
But I understand the concept,
right?
It's just like, you need to be a little more active in what people are doing.
Right. Right. But to me, connection is about trust. It's about how do you step out of the monkey suit, the character that you're trying to play as a leader, and be real so that people can connect with you as a human being, because that's what happens. These bosses that go undercover on this show, they get transformed into humans. So now they have lost their sort of armor as a leader.
Right.
And they connect with the people at a very personal level. And that's what leadership is.
Do you find more people are doing that, or are you finding us as now we've got social media, we've got all these other avenues? Yeah, we may be more connected with information, but do you think we're making more connections? Or are we making less connections? Are we using like social media as like a barrier as leaders? We just tweet.
No.
Maybe we send them a memo, and maybe we meet once a quarter and I rally the troops.
Right.
But am I really connecting?
Well, I think the connection depends on the content. Do you connect in a way that you're just tweeting like you said, to rally the forces, or are you tweeting about what you're thinking about, how you're feeling about this issue? What are the ways in which you see the organization going? Are you opening yourself up? Are you being more vulnerable?
Yeah.
Or are you not?
Like I said, do you see that there's a general pattern of more connection or less connection?
I do see more connection.
So we are getting more connected.
Yeah, I think actually the generations that are coming after us, because I'm a tail end boomer. So, the Gen Ys, the Gen Xs, they're changing the rule of the game. They are really wanting more out of life.
And more connection.
And more connection.
So they're manufacturing whether it's there or not. So they're
right.
Because I had that problem when I'm a Gen Xer, so I wanted to connect, and I made a mistake when I first got my very first job in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Started working for an advertising agency,
mm-hmm.
and the president of the company hired me.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, an HR person or
right.
the person I'm going to work for would have
mm-hmm.
you come in. And no, the president sat me down and he's like, "I'm really impressed with you, and I think you're doing a heck of a job. And
right.
We want to hire you full time, and I'm going to put you in this department." Okay. Well, that thing didn't really. I was there for a couple months and it didn't work out. And instead of going to my direct supervisor, I'm like, "Well, he didn't hire me. I'm going to go."
You went to the CEO, whatever.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I did. I went to the president of the company, which
right.
was kind of at the time I didn't realize that was probably not a good move.
Right.
You learn these things. I was 21 years old. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I was kind of forcing that connection with the higher ups.
Mm-hmm. Well, but he opened the door.
Yeah, to my exit eventually. I actually stayed around for like 2 years, but it was like one of those things where the dynamic of the relationship that I had with certain people because
mm-hmm.
of that breach of etiquette,
mm-hmm.
so to speak, caused problems.
Yeah, I can see that.
But
mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the younger generations are doing that as well. And thankfully for them, they're doing it 10 years afterwards, so it's not as uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I must have been, this was like 92, 93, so I think I must have been the first one, the first age group that started to do that, so it kind of...
Well, they haven't gotten they're now getting critical mass, and they're at different levels now than, like you at 21. You are a Gen Xer, so there weren't too many Gen Xers that were directors and above, right?
Yeah, now I'm 37, could be 38 soon.
Right.
So it's like, now they're in positions of mediocre power.
Right. Right.
If not, they've started their own company.
Right.
And that's where my next step was with you. So you worked with them. You learned a lot of leadership skills. You
mm-hmm.
applied them yourself.
And made a lot of mistakes.
Well, sure. That's how you learn. I mean,
right.
Nobody learns. I don't think anybody does everything right.
No.
And if they do, they're not learning because someone told them how to do it. So it's not really learning.
Mm-hmm.
When things go wrong, I think that's when your leadership skills come out. When things are going well,
absolutely.
It's like anybody, you can put a figurehead in charge when things are going well. It's when things go to crap. But at what point did you say, "Well, I've been doing this long enough"? Because you had 7 with Avon, 4,
mm-hmm.
so you got 21 years under you, and you're like, well, let's branch out. Because I think a lot of people are nervous to make that leap.
Right.
Was your situation where you had been saving up for a couple, you had an exit strategy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And what happened was when I finally came to Houston, because they moved me here, and I was apprehensive, but I was open to it because I was really not a huge fan of Atlanta. And I was looking for a progression, and I was moved up. They promoted me when they moved me here. So I knew at that time that all roads led back to Atlanta. And then once I started to get really comfortable here in Houston, I started to think about my exit strategy because I knew I didn't want to go back to Atlanta. And so for a number of years, I really did a lot of soul searching. You know, I knew I wanted to write a book. I knew I had a lot of passion around leadership. I knew I had a lot of voice inside of me in terms of wanting to get my message out. I wanted to help other women leaders to do a better job than what I had done because I had a lot of sacrifices. You know, I was 40 before I hooked up with my husband, and
I like it. You hooked up.
I hooked up.
Some guy I found, I just kind of hooked up with him. But
and then
so you got married late in life.
Got married late. Well, I had a previous marriage, but
well, he doesn't count.
You know, it doesn't count. That was like starter marriage.
Yeah.
And then we adopted our daughter Layla, and I was 45. So
yeah, that's kind of late to start because my wife's from Utah. And so. Not that we don't have any kids, nor do we have any plans to kids, and I want to talk to you about how you incorporate your parenthood
right
skills into leadership, because
that's what my book's about.
Right. Mm-hmm. But in Utah, if you are 25 and not married, you're an old maid. Because I remember going to see that movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Oh yeah.
With my wife. We were just started dating, and so I went with her because we're dating. You got to do it.
Right.
And I'm the only guy in the whole theater in Salt Lake. And it's me, my wife, and 55 women.
Yeah.
And at the very first 4 or 5 minutes, they were talking about how she was 32 or 30-something, very young 30s, and she had never been married. And there was an audible, oh, throughout the whole crowd. Like, that was a horrible thing. Because in New York, that's not a big deal.
No, it's not.
And in certain areas, that's not, I didn't get married until I was in my early 30s. My wife was in her late 20s, but at that point it's like you had to be 25 with a kid, and I think a lot of people don't feel like you can't make that up.
Right.
And I don't think that's true. I think you've proven that.
No, and I tell women all the time. I said you can have it all, you just can't have it all at once.
Right.
So you just got to stage your life. And I have no regrets, but I was the typical proverbial career woman who had focused solely on, working her way up the corporate ladder.
Which you did.
Which I did.
And obviously there was some professional and financial advantages to that.
Absolutely.
So, it's not
no, I have no regrets.
Yeah, no, I know you don't. I'm letting people who are listening know that.
You're right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, I'm not sad about it.
Yeah, no. Because there's this movie called Idiocracy.
Yeah.
Which is, the plot of the movie is that, professional people like you didn't have enough kids.
Right.
But dumb people were just popping the kids out, and so the population was just
how funny.
So the guy's frozen in 2,000 years. He comes back out, and he's the stupidest person on earth until he's frozen and he's thawed out. Now he's the smartest guy on earth because
of this.
Because the smart people were like, well, we want to do this, we want to do that, and they finally just never had kids because it never really aligned for them. And I think that's a myth.
Funny.
Just like I think, I don't think stupid people are overpopulating, though there may be an issue, there may be some accuracy into that. But
from a cynic,
from a non-parent. But you adopted it late. Now, you incorporated immediately leadership skills. Now, see that when I see this, when I think about my own childhood, is that I don't really. It's hard to see a parent as a leader, though you have to have leadership skills. It's more like a benevolent dictator.
Well, that's because your parents probably employed the wrong leadership approach.
Well, no,
command and control.
Not just my dad did once say that America stops at the door, and this is the People's Republic of Dad. But it wasn't that. It's more of you're taking care of them. They up until a certain point they don't really rebel. Mm-hmm. They do have to kind of do what you say. Mm-hmm. A 4-year-old, they'll throw a tantrum, but sooner or later they hopefully they acquiesce, because otherwise, as a parent or a leader, you're doing your job.
Right.
If you let them scream for an hour and a half in the restaurant, which does happen all the time.
Yeah.
So tell me in a nutshell the main point about bringing the parent skills into leadership. And I want to know if you think you have to be a parent to be a good leader and vice versa.
No. Well, I'll just say that right off the bat.
That's good.
No.
Because I was going to fight you on that one.
Well, but I was going to say, Craig, the other thing, too, is that it wasn't just your parents, and it wasn't just my parents, perhaps, in the command and control way, because that is the way even corporate America used to be.
Oh, absolutely.
And so this whole notion of discipline was really more about punishment as opposed to establishing boundaries. Because discipline is that. It's about establishing a boundary. And so oftentimes what I say to both parents and leaders, and one and the same for me, is that you still have to respect the individual, and you still have to respect your child. I know that sounds maybe...
I don't have a kid, so I'm just staring blankly at you and listening to you. So you're looking at me like I'm going to validate you. Yeah. I'm like, that may be true. I have dogs, and they're nothing like kids. In fact,
you have to respect them, don't you?
They're lazy, fat dogs that sleep all day. They're pugs. I don't really respect them. I like them a lot, but they don't do anything. They don't bring anything to the table besides they're cute, and in the cold weather, they warm up the bed.
Right.
And they're buddies. They're just like, I hang out with them during the day. But
they're loyal to you because you respect them, right? Or that you actually...
Because I feed them.
You feed them.
Yep.
And you take care of them. And you address their needs.
Yeah, they don't. That's why they're dogs. They only have really 2 or 3.
Right.
I need to eat. Can you take me out? And even then, they don't care if you take them out because they'll go whether they want to or If you don't teach them right, they'll and play with them. So you got those 3 things. It's much different than kids. Kids need to be told. They have to have self-esteem. They've got to have confidence. They've also got to have some intelligence.
Right.
Dogs don't. I got
one.
No,
I know, and I'm stretching it a little bit because I don't know enough about dogs to say that. It requires leadership just the way children do. But to me,
good, I'm glad because I got in a fight with Tom Singer earlier.
About that?
He was telling me that he could do a whole podcast about people who think dogs and children are similar.
Oh.
And he's a parent, and I'm like, no.
And does he agree?
Oh no, he thinks he thinks people who tell you that dogs are like little kids. It's like, no, you're crazy. And it's like, you're right. Kids are much worse.
Right.
But go ahead and tell me how you bring that into the leadership.
Well, first of all, I have to tell a very quick story because the way it started was I was leaving to go to Russia, and a senior vice president of our company, a good friend of mine, his name is Mike, he basically stopped me in the hall and he said, congratulations, Laura. I mean, my goodness, you're going to be a great mom, but don't, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm 45, all this stuff.
You adopted from Russia?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and my husband and I had to go there twice.
Sure, they don't ship them through FedEx.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Even though you have to notify, is there any blood in this package? Well, sort of. So you headed to, where in Russia did you?
So in Yekaterinburg.
Okay.
Yekaterinburg, Russia. It's actually the 3rd largest city in Russia, which most people don't know that.
Again,
and I didn't know that. So.
Again, American. I know Moscow.
Yeah, there you go. Moscow, maybe St. Petersburg. But
that's in Florida. Right. It's about my limitations. So off you go.
Off we go. But, one of the things he said to me was, but I got to tell you, Laura, everything that has made you successful in your career here and at Coke and, just what you're doing, it doesn't work at home. And I just froze, and I was panicked because I said, oh my gosh, what is this man trying to tell me? That I'm going to be a crappy mom? And I just felt all this, swoosh of anxiety because I said, oh my gosh, everything that I've been, which is a corporate leader, is not going to work at home. So what am I going to do now? And so I spent the next 2 months while, I stayed home with my daughter for 2 months. And I really thought about what Mike had said to me. And it finally dawned on me. I said, really what he meant was that management skills actually don't work at home because you cannot treat your daughter or your son as a project timeline. In fact, one of the things that I learned through parenting is that everything takes forever.
Yeah. I would imagine.
And for someone who was moving at a nano-fast second, it felt like a noose around my neck oftentimes, or, a ball and chain around my ankle. And so I really learned about people's speed and differences of speed and how you have to adjust to that. And then I always quote John C. Maxwell always said, you can always make it across the room a whole lot faster alone, but if you're a leader, you've got to walk through the crowd in a very slow way.
Oh, I thought you were going to go after the kid if they screwed up. Yeah. Different parenting skills.
Different parenting skills.
You can jump across. If they screw up, you can get across the room.
Right.
But you can get across the room with help, because they can split the crowd for you.
Well, it's
some
just
degree.
you get to the end of you get to the room with the crowd between you and the end of the room. You get there much faster if you go at it alone, but if you bring other people with you, it takes a lot of time. And so that's the point. The point is that it takes a lot of time to move forward with someone with you. Now, command and control is all about you do it because I said so.
Which I think, me, I talk about negativity and how it's useful. I think that's one of the things that they have used in the corporate world is if someone has constructive feedback, they just don't know how to say it. It's like, don't be negative, which is a nice way of saying shut up and do what we tell you.
That's exactly right.
So you can't do that with people, or that's not leadership. That's more of a dictatorship.
Right. Exactly.
Which has no leader, as we've been seeing throughout the world as everything's slowly or quickly collapsing. This won't be for months from now, so hopefully it'll all be done.
Right. There'll be another one.
Yeah, but the dictatorships, they do last for a long time, but they if you got enough power, but they are built on very fragile
foundation.
You can upset that apple cart pretty quick.
Right.
And the idea of leadership is to be around for a while.
Right. Well, and I think I had the advantage, too, of the fact that my daughter was adopted, because I had to have a curiosity about figuring her out, because it wasn't like she came out of me into the world and with my DNA. So I learned about curiosity as a leadership skill. I learned about a sense of listening that I really didn't do before.
And so, when you finally were you still at Coke when you
yes.
adopted her? Mm-hmm. What was I'll use the big word, impetus? What was the thing that made you jump?
Jump to be a parent?
Not just a parent, but to leave Coke.
Oh,
because now you have even more responsibilities.
Right.
I mean, I call it jumping off the cliff.
Right. And it is a cliff, absolutely.
Right, and I think it's because I think most people don't prepare to jump off the cliff, which is why they splat on the rocks. I think, parachutes and hang gliders are good things to have when you jump off cliffs.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know, what kind of parachute did you have that allowed you to jump off the cliff? Because I know you didn't. You're a smart lady. You don't just jump off a cliff without something.
No. Well, it took years of planning for the exit. Okay. I would say.
So you did plan for years.
Well, I did, and I saved for years.
Okay.
And,
some people don't do that.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't. So I would say that my frugal beginnings, coming from an immigrant family, when I was making a lot of money, I didn't spend a lot of money. So number one, I saved a lot of money. Number two, I really was getting clearer about just what I wanted to do. And I think I was at a point in time where it had run its course. I felt like I had gotten to the level that, I didn't really have aspirations to go become a CEO. I felt very satisfied with the level that I had achieved. And it's a much longer story, and I'm sure we don't have the time, but it started so much more before. It's like I was already on this path of reassessing my own leadership skills because of some wake-up calls with people in my team who had kind of smacked me with a 2x4 on, because I didn't have any sympathy for people who had children. I didn't have any sympathy for people who didn't put work first, because I was such a
workaholic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have kids.
Right.
I mean, I do have sympathy for people who have kids because, I understand how much work is involved.
Right.
I've always been around people who've had kids, or multiple kids, or lots of kids, or
right.
Or even when I was a little kid, when I was being babysat, I could see how, because I didn't go to just like I come from a small town, so we had a local lady. It wasn't like a daycare center. It was a local lady, Berta, and Berta Bailey, who was awesome. And she had like 15 kids, but they're all into her house, and so I saw that it took more than just. A little bit of effort.
Well, it's not that I didn't see it.
No, but I mean, I always felt like, oh man, that's why we don't plan on having any kids, because
you know how much work it is.
We know how much work it is. We know what our tolerance level is.
Right.
I will even ask the waiter to move us if they put us near kids, because I want to enjoy my meal. I don't want to hear the kid that,
screaming or whatever.
I mean, I've gotten dirty looks because it's not like I go, get me away from those people. I go, can we have another table? And then it's only 6 people in the whole restaurant, and then we move all the way aside. You kind of know what happened. But it's that empathy that, it is tough. I mean, and for you had no idea. How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I have several. I have one of each, actually.
Oh, so not really.
But I love my nieces and nephews. I don't want to say that I didn't have a heart about kids, but I saw it. But when it came down to business, I didn't have the, like your kid is sick, get over it. I didn't have the context for what that meant.
How much effort was involved, how much of a disruption it could be. A
disruption it could be to your personal life. And so I think I was very demanding of my, associates. And like I said, it started with sort of this 2x4 across my head where it just really started me down the path of, well, gee, I have to really reassess what kind of leader I am, what kind of life I want to live. And
so you worked on yourself first.
Yeah, and
that also does not happen in the business we're in.
No.
Consultants go, hey, I'm really good at this. I'm going to spread my knowledge. And it's like, you're always like, I was always a go-getter, and I wasn't
No, exactly.
And that's the reality of what a lot of people are, is that they're completely opposite sometimes of how they actually act.
Right. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So that's what I did. I kind of went into this whole, journey of discovery. And during that time, that's when I met my husband, and then it just sort of things started to click for me on a personal level. It was almost like I put my personal life on a track because I didn't have one before.
Okay. Yeah, no,
and so that's what happened. And then, as I was on this track, then I started to say, okay, well, gosh, I feel like my priorities are shifting. I'm not so sure I want to give up everything to go work in Atlanta.
Okay.
And so then it was really a natural progression, and it was sort of looking, I call it my dumpster dive. I kind of said, okay, what were some of the dreams and hopes that I wanted to accomplish in my life before? And it was things like, I want to write a book. I want to share my knowledge. I want to, connect with other women and empower them to be better leaders. So a lot of what I was discovering was, okay, this is a great time. And so the very first thing I did was I wrote my book.
Okay. Now, you do mostly consulting, and you do, but you do speak, but you do mostly consulting, and
not mostly.
Mostly?
Well,
what do you do?
I
Coaching?
would say
I know you do some coaching.
I do coach. I think coaching is probably my biggest component.
Okay. Well, we'll focus on that because I want to make sure we get some things from you, because I know you're an invaluable tool, and I want to make sure I can squeeze some freebies out of you before we leave.
Okay.
Say we'll say that because you deal with up and coming executives, people who are getting ready to go to the next level, because you're teaching them some of the leadership skills that they might need.
And some established ones as well.
Well, yeah. We'll say we're a middle management female, because I know that's your wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. And just got promoted. Mm-hmm. Now they went from middle management. Now this is their first time they're at a lower senior level. That's
right.
I guess that's like upper middle class,
right?
Whatever, or lower upper class, or all that stuff.
Right.
Now each person's obviously individual, and you want to find out what their strengths and weaknesses are. But what's like the first thing you look for in a person as far as leadership skills that you can
help them with?
You can foster. You can really say, this is the first muscle we're going to work out before you start.
Well, generally speaking, when people get promoted, they've been successful at achieving some kind of results. So I look at the style that they achieved results in the past. And I would say 9 times out of 10, those people are what I call bulldoggers, meaning they're workhorses, they're dogs on bones. They're just getting things done.
They got the blinders on, they go right for it.
They're focused on the what. So I spend a lot of time on developing the how you get things done. And, and I talk about how you build strategic networks, how leadership happens not just in a downward fashion, because that's another mistake a lot of people make, is now they're in a whole new, it's like they just bought a house in a new upscale neighborhood, right? And so now they have to make friends with who?
They're neighbors.
They're neighbors.
Well, I when I talk about the leadership, I always say that it's tough in this downward fashion because it's like a monkey in a tree.
Right.
You heard the expression, the old monkey in a tree. When they look down, all they see is smiling monkeys.
That's right.
But all the smiling monkeys, when they look up,
right.
they see the back end of another monkey.
Right.
So sometimes it's hard to figure out, if your leadership style is necessarily working right away because you can't tell because you're looking down. You need to find some information from peers.
Right. Well, and building the relationship with peers is something that I think people don't realize because at the lower levels, you're competing with those people. You're all sort of like, I'm trying to get promoted here. I mean, it's not that you're not friends with them, but there's this sort of, a blind eye, turning a blind eye on that person because you're trying to focus, you're looking up. And so when you get to that level of being up there, then, one of the things is the how, and I really talk about building your strategic network laterally.
With your fellow peers, not the people at the same
Right.
level with you.
At the same level.
Because if you can both go up,
That's right.
or at some point, it is a pyramid. All organizations have a
Right.
leader, but if you can at least help each other to get as high up on that pyramid as possible,
Yeah.
one of you may be able to lift the other one up to the top.
Yeah. And ironically, men know this better than women. Women are considered consensus builders, but reality is that they focus on too much on the to-do list. They're like checking things off.
They're getting stuff done.
They're getting stuff done.
And not necessarily, making alliances.
Right.
I feel like I'm on Survivor all of a sudden. Making strategic alliances.
Yeah. That's right.
Necessarily making these decisions where you have to cut someone loose.
Right.
A peer that, I'm going to have to do this. It's going to bother him, but it's got to get done so I can move ahead. I guess maybe it's, I want to say sports, but I don't think it.
No, I don't know.
Sure that's what it is.
I don't think there's an analogy in that regard.
Yeah, because I don't think that's it. Because it's just too many. I just know too many softball players, women's softball players who can kick my butt just for saying that.
Right.
Who are very strategic.
But the correlation to parenting is the connection with the other spouse. Because it's that same idea that in order for you to lead downward to your son or daughter, you have to have that connection at the top with laterally with the other spouse.
You got to have an alliance as well.
You
You got to
have
have
to
someone
have an
back.
alliance.
Someone's got to have your back.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you have no power.
Right.
All right. Well, how can people find you if they're looking for you?
My website, www.laura-lopez.com. There's lots of Laura Lopez's, Craig.
Really?
And we're in Texas, all right? So I'm talking.
I know. It's like the June Smith of Spain.
Exactly.
But you've got a lot of great books out. Your Connected Leader series.
Right. The Connected and Committed Leader.
Yeah.
Lessons from Home, Results at Work.
And they can find that on Amazon.
They find it on Amazon.
I'll make sure to put links on the.
Oh, okay.
on the
That'd be
things
great.
as well.
That'd be great.
We try to help each other out.
That's right.
Yes. Peers.
Oh,
Got to work together.
Absolutely. Got to work together. Support each other.
Well, I certainly appreciate the time.
Well, I hope you got something out of it.
I did. I did because I'm going to make some alliances now. I want to thank Laura Lopez for coming on the show and tolerating me for 45 minutes. We really appreciate that. You can always find out more about us at realitycheckpodcast.com. You can sign up for the newsletter. You can get us on iTunes. I would like some feedback. Craig at SpeakerCraigPrice.com. You can always send emails, comments, suggestions, anything you want. Craig at SpeakerCraigPrice.com. See you next week.